The Greeks would tell you that there are four kinds of love: eros, or romantic love; philia, meaning friendship; affection, sometimes called familial; and agape, which is love for humanity as a whole. In the wake of YouTube's mass hatred of Velma, combined with a lot of people admitting that they like Fred despite hating the show, I have discovered a new type of love that has not yet been named: love for a fictional character. I am, of course, not referring to some kind of waifu status for a cute anime girl that you're a little too into. I'm talking about how a character can be so well received that the audience develops an affection for them, as if they were a real person, wanting to see them continue on their journey of self-improvement, just like someone who we might know in real life. Hopefully without having to watch a season 2. Why am I talking about love for a fictional character? Well, in the wake of what might have been the worst animated series of all time, Velma gave us an adaptation of Fred Jones that a surprising number of people like, in spite of the terribleness of the show. Now, I would go into all of the details explaining why Fred Jones is an awesome character, in spite of being in one of the worst shows ever created, but a long time ago, in the faraway land of Canada, Nux Taku, the ancient shiz-posting master of Dorkness, unleashed an unspeakable video upon the worldo. And it is my personal policy not to cover a subject when somebody else has already done a great job of it. Not when I can just put a link to his video in the description below. But there is one problem. One thing that Nux got wrong. Very wrong.
This show, it's so bad, it makes you literally start rooting for the rich, spoiled, baby, tiny dick white dude. In this Velma world, where all these characters that are supposed to be sort of victims to society end up being the monsters in society, you can't help but root for a man spewing this stuff.
No, Nux. Fred Jones is not a lovable, well-written character because everyone around him is terrible. Fred Jones is lovable in spite of everyone else being terrible. Fred Jones would be an awesome character with an arc of self-improvement that would be fun to watch even if he wasn't in a show that takes every chance it gets to sexualize minors. And we know this because ReZero exists. Subaru Natsuki is a loser protagonist on a hero's journey of self-improvement. Like Fred Jones, he's flawed, and his flaws are understandable, especially after we learn about his backstory, and in some ways they're very similar to Fred's. Placing women on a pedestal is, in a way, just as misogynistic as treating women the way Fred does. Both of these characters are objectifying women, just in different ways. Both of them are immature for their age. They both lack skills they probably should have developed a long time ago. One's just played more for comedy. Both undergo character arcs in which they struggle to become better people. You could drop Fred Jones into the world of Lagunica and the plot of ReZero, and the character would still work just fine. We would still be able to enjoy watching this doofus develop into a decent human being. But this cannot be! The two of you watching this who also read my blog are probably saying. In your article on why ReZero works where Rent-A-Girlfriend failed, you said that the problem was everyone around the protagonist, and now you're saying that the surrounding characters don't matter? Well, no. I stand by everything I said before. ReZero works as a show because the characters around Subaru are giving him appropriate feedback. They act like reasonable adults, punish and berate him when he does something stupid, reward him when he does things right. And conversely, Rent-A-Girlfriend is a terrible show because Kazuya might as well be surrounded by a bunch of howler monkeys on crystal meth. You've got Chizuru, the main girl, who rewards him for stalking her with validation and a Christmas gift, and then when he tries to cover for her, when the lie of their relationship is exposed, she responds by ghosting him for 3 months. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. For one supporting character. I will stick to my guns on the point that Kazuya is not the problem with Rent-A-Girlfriend. He's as flawed and broken as Subaru, and in many of the same ways. What little character development he manages to scrape out in such a nonsensical world is an accomplishment, especially when everyone around him is validating him for the wrong things and giving him no credit when he gets something right. Replace these morons with Rem and Wilhelm, and Kazuya could make some real progress like Subaru. But the thing that people have to remember regarding both Fred and Kazuya, both of their shows are terrible. I love seeing a loser character try to better themselves, but neither one of these two can save these series from being awful. So now the question is, why do so many people still hate on Kazuya, but even people who despise Velma with enough hatred to commit a war crime openly admit that Fred is a decent character? Well, it gets back into my earlier description of character love. I firmly believe that love comes from virtue. The more you practice virtues such as kindness, patience, a willingness to help, the humility to try and improve, however misguided that may be.
Fellow populars, yes. Underneath this banging new Luke, Velma is still the fashionably challenged loser we depend on for group projects. But last night, we spoke. It is just a scared little boy who wants our friendship.
Whether it's quality or quantity, the more you focus on becoming a virtuous person, the more you are capable of loving others and being loved yourself. Conversely, vices make you unlovable. Things like arrogance, bigotry, hypocrisy,
It's a rich white guy with a tiny dong. He did it.
vindictiveness, excessive selfishness, laziness,
Quick, find the button that makes the bucket go up.
It doesn't work like that.
We have to climb. I see. So I guess I just live down here?
gluttony, bullying, bullying your family, bullying a baby.
How long are you gonna list stuff?
It's a long list.
The point is, things that you have control over, things that you choose, can qualify as virtues that make you a good person. Things that are beyond your control don't make you a good person or a bad person. A character can have vices and still be lovable, but there's a balancing act involved. You need enough good habits to outweigh the bad ones, and, most important, you need the character to be trying to overcome their flaws. A well-written character can have traits that make us love to hate them, but there's a big difference between loving a character and loving to hate said character. There's a difference between being a good character and a good person. And while I believe that Kazuya is a good character, I do not believe that he is a good person. As a protagonist in a story about a loser trying to improve, he's great. But in his own story, his few virtues aren't enough to outweigh his own vices. And to prove my point, there's one arc in Rent-A-Girlfriend that even people who hate the show admit to liking, and even Kazuya's detractors temporarily come around to his side. And that is the movie arc, where Kazuya drops everything and focuses on trying to create a movie for Chizuru so she can show her grandmother and grant this woman her dying wish. During this arc, it's evident that Kazuya isn't doing this to get into Chizuru's pants. He's doing this because he genuinely wants to help her make her grandmother proud. It's an undeniably kind act that shows a great deal of diligence on Kazuya's part. And if the series had ended there... yeah. Fred Jones is different. Wherever he has control, wherever he has agency in his own life, he is constantly trying to be the best version of himself that he can be. He might be completely stupid about it, but stupid isn't really a choice. Intelligence is almost entirely decided by a person's upbringing and their genetics. Nobody picks their parents, and nobody gets to pick their genes. Fred didn't choose to be dumb, and what little control he does have suggests that he's struggling against his own dumbness, to the extent that he can. His misogyny is the result of the way he was raised, and he's clearly trying to overcome that, too. Kazuya's flaws are also the result of his own upbringing, namely the fact that his parents and grandmother belittle and make fun of him to the point where he has no self-confidence, and it's not surprising that his fetish is imagining other people in relationships where he can only watch. But unlike Fred, he doesn't appear to be struggling against the flaws that have been thrust upon him by his parents. In some ways, he seems to be embracing them. And while flaws like stupidity and a lack of self-confidence might not be a choice, and that means they aren't vices, that also means they aren't virtues either. Being a victim doesn't make you a bad person, but it also doesn't make you a good person. And showing us why a character has certain flaws can make us interested in their personal growth, but not much more. It won't make us love a character.
You can't just be deserving, you have to be worthy!
And that, in my humble opinion, is what separates these three losers. One is a protagonist we grow to love in a show that's actually good, one is a protagonist we couldn't love in a show that's terrible, and one is a character meant to be hated but very loved in a show that everyone hates. And for that reason, I respectfully disagree with Nuxtaku's opinion. I will probably be coming back to Velma in the future. Specifically, I want to look at what kind of mindset the people who made this show have to have in order to create such awful characters and completely misjudge who the audience would sympathize with. Because it's a problem that I've seen becoming more and more common, not just in mainstream media, but even in writers' groups I've joined, What we're seeing now in shows like Velma is really just the tip of the iceberg. The show that gets published, not the tons and tons of other stories that never see the light of day. I don't have a good segue here to shill my book, but if you like this kind of content, if you think I'm onto something with this video rant, then you can check out my blog, where I try to address topics like this and give you insight you won't find anywhere else. And if you'd like to read a story written by someone who thinks like that, head over to Amazon and order a copy of Heroes of Janan, The Science of Magic, today.